If you were to ask me, I would tell that you and I and everything else that you know and that you see are somehow intertwined and connected by some weird mystery. And this is clear to me today. But if you had to ask me this a long time ago, I would have had no clue what you're talking about. And that made me ask the question, why did I always think that I was so separate from everything else? Well, that's what we're talking about in today's video. So let's get to it. How's it going? My name is John Penn, and if this is your first time visiting my channel, make sure you click on the subscribe button, smash the bell as well, dong, so you get a notification every time I put out a brand new video. I do a video every Sunday, so stay tuned for those, and you don't want to miss them because we are going to be diving deep into the depth of your being and my, well, mostly mine, and hopefully you can relate to you, but this will definitely help you make sense of the reality that you've been experiencing, hopefully. But definitely stay tuned for those. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about why did I always think I was separate from everyone else, right? It wasn't until recently that I fully grasped the oneness and the one thing that connects me to everything and everyone else. And now it is clear to me, but before it wasn't always this clear. Why? Well, because growing up, I was taught to believe that I was separate from everyone else. I was separate from everyone else because I'm black and I'm African and I come from a certain family, the Penny family, and that family has a certain reputation to keep. And that meant that I had to behave a certain type of way and I had to accomplish certain types of things and I had to be a certain type of person in order for me to be considered valuable, in order for me to be accepted in society. But that was the whole thing. That was an illusion of unity. It almost felt like there was a checklist with boxes that had to be checked every time I accomplished something, and then I could be free to believe that I belong and that I was loved. But from a very young age, this never made sense to me, right? I had always been the kind of kid that wakes up in the morning and is out the door and is out in the neighborhood, meeting new people, getting to know new people, getting new experiences. And that was me. And that used to drive my parents crazy. But that's just who I was, right? And whenever I would meet people, I would encounter people, it was never about where they're from or how they look or what kind of language they speak. There was something about being with them and interacting with them that gave me a sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance, right? So they didn't care either where I came from. In that moment, I realized that there was another kid trying to connect with me, just like I wanted to connect with them. One thing that always had been true about me, and is still true till this day, is that I always wanted to love freely. And I always wanted to be loved freely, right? It's a knowing that I've always had. And every single time that I was put in a box where I had to be a certain type of way in order for me to receive love, that somehow innately felt wrong within me. But being a child, fear was also a big factor in how I was raised. The truth about it was that my parents raised me in that fear mindset. Here's a story. When I was a kid, I believe maybe, I would say about 7 or 8, my mom had guests over and me and my brother were sitting on the floor watching TV, and out of nowhere somebody farted. It was really loud that everybody noticed. And I remember my brother being like, "Oh, John, I can't believe you just farted right now, man. That's nasty." And I knew for a fact that it wasn't me. Now, this story might sound silly, but it's for a point. And I remember standing up to him and being like, "I didn't do it. Why are you accusing me? You might have been the one that did it." And it flipped. Like in that moment, he was so mad. He got up, started chasing me around the room, and I didn't get it. I was like, "Dude, I didn't do anything." And to me, it was actually kind of fun that my brother was chasing me over something that I didn't do. I was like, I have that much power over you? But to cut the long story short, my mother grabbed me. She was like, no, John, you can't ever say that someone that is older than you did something wrong. She looked at me in my eyes and said, "John, it doesn't matter if you didn't do it. if this person is older than you accept whatever it is that they tell you. If they say that you're wrong, you're wrong. If they blame you, you just take it and you don't say a word. And I remember, I was like, Mom, no. Like, I was like crying my eyes. I was like, but why? Why do I need to accept something that I didn't do? I'm not going to take accountability for something that I didn't do. She said, no, John, don't talk back to me. What I'm telling you goes. If somebody that is older than you says you did something wrong, then you did it. And in an African community, this might sound like, yeah, it's discipline. But what that did to me in that moment is something that still impacts me even till this day. I betrayed myself. Because deep down in my heart, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. And I love my mother with all my heart. And all that I wanted is for her to just love me back for who I really am. And in that moment, who I really was not the guy that was guilty. And I trusted my mom, and I loved her so much that I expected her to see that. I wanted her to see that. But she didn't. And this is not her fault. It's just the tradition that she lived in, the tradition that was passed down to her. And I feel bad for her that she was raised by parents that didn't want to take accountability for their own actions and force their kids to change who they really are in order for parents to feel better about themselves. And that's not my grandparents' fault either, because it was the parents before them, and this has been passed down for so many generations. And it might have happened by some form of hurt, right? Following my bloodline, I trace it back all the way to the Congo Empire in Central Africa and the Luba Empire in Central Africa. And slavery was a big part of that. And that's taking someone's power away, inflicting pain upon them to make them feel as less of a being. And that can be passed down because, obviously you would have to teach your children how to be good slaves in order to survive, in order to live. And now that slavery isn't present anymore, it became like a tradition. It became like a way of life. Now, a lot of people in my culture don't do the research to find out if this is true. But after me looking into it, I understood how that can get passed down. Could be totally wrong, but what I do know for certain is that it was passed down. And my mother didn't know any better when she did that. And in that moment, I didn't want to lose my mother's love. Because I knew that if I didn't admit that I was guilty, my mother would not be happy with me. And if my mother wasn't happy with me, I would either be punished or I would be denied love and affection. And I didn't want to lose that. As a kid, man, I just wanted to be loved. So I said, okay, I'm guilty. I did it. And then I got punished for it. Because it was like, so why did you deny it? And I got punished for it. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized how it affected me. Because from that day moving forward, I started literally looking for validation. I felt that I needed to be what people that were older than me expected me to be in order for me to fit in order for me to belong. So since then, I lived my life looking for somewhere to belong, looking for somewhere to be accepted, looking to be accepted by anyone that I come across, whether it was friends, whether it was girlfriends, whether it was teachers, whoever. I became a people pleaser. And that still affects me until today. And it's funny how something so silly, something so small, had such a major impact and became a belief that I adapted, a belief that made me realize that I am different from everyone else. I am separate from everyone else, that everybody else is held at a different standard, and that there is something that is innately wrong with me. And in order for me to receive validation and love and acceptance from anyone else or from the world, I needed to be what the world wanted me to be. But that was completely wrong. Because in doing that, I wasn't being who I was created to be. Because I do believe that I was created to be and to exist for a purpose. I was created to live and experience this life as freely as I could. and to live this life in a way that fits for me. And I don't want to hurt anyone. Deep down, my soul just wants to love. And I think it's relatable. You see it in people. You recognize it in people because you see how much people also want to love you, and how much they also want you to love them. And I've always wanted to do that, but when I was made to deny my true self, I also lost touch with that side of me. I started to believe that there was me, and then there was the world, right? And that is just one aspect of how I was taught to not be my true self. And that made me realize that in truth, oneness comes from being at one within yourself. I believe that there is a part of us that is soul, that is born into the body knowing what to do. And then there is the ego side that we adapt with the programming and the parenting and the social constructs that we find in the world through our physical experiences. And when those two aspects of us aren't in sync and aren't one, it's almost like a battle within us, where we find ourselves doing things that the world expects us to do, yet not feeling fulfilled within our soul. And also finding us doing the things that our soul wants us to do, that makes us feel fulfilled, and makes us feel true, and makes us feel authentic and happy, yet the world doesn't validate us for it. Therefore we almost feel like it's not valuable anymore, because we always have that constant battle within ourselves. And that battle is reflected out into the world. That is what divides people. That is what divides the world. Because people start to identify based on the standard that the world has. And the world will tell you that if you are black, you are this. If you are white, you are this. If you are rich, you are held at this standard. If you are poor, you are held at this standard. The world will tell you that if you believe in this, then you are good enough. If you believe in that, then you're not good enough. And because most of us have that divide, I don't know if you do, but I know I did. I had that divide within me. And that divide made me think that I couldn't be who I was intended to be freely, that I had to conform to this idea. And this idea came with boxes and a checklist, and was divided, and a battle I would constantly have within myself, facing every decision that I will make, whether I should go to a school that feels right to me, or whether I should go to the school that my parents would be proud of me for, or the school that people would praise my parents for, the school that would give my parents a better reputation, whether I should date the person that would truly fulfill my soul and my core and my being, or date a person that my parents would praise me for, or a person that people will see and praise my reputation, my parents' reputation for. And I was always facing that constant battle with the choices that I make. And I make choices almost every second. And that's how much that affected my life. And I always think of it as like a boat at sea. And you are the captain on the wheel. And by moving that wheel only 5 degrees, right, every second, while you're at sea, you will not see the difference. But by the time you reach your destination, if you're trying to get to Africa, that 5-degree shift might be as big as sending you to the South Pole, or sending you to Europe. Because in the long run it affects you, but in the short run it doesn't. Same for my decisions. Because they were influenced by this divide that I had within me. In the short run it felt like I was doing the right thing because I would get validated for it. But in the long run, when I became an adult and became independent from my parents and had to rely on myself to validate myself, I realized that I didn't know how to, and I wasn't enough. I realized that I was unfulfilled and I was unhappy. And that's what made me realize that traditions serve a purpose for the time and the circumstances for which it was created for. But once that time has passed, those traditions must be questioned. You have to ask yourself, does this still serve me? Because if it doesn't, what it really does is it creates an illusion of unity through the validation that you get from the world. But deep down within you, you are not your true self. You are not fulfilled. You are not happy. You are fake. I was all those things. And that made me an hypocrite. where my report card, according to the world, was perfect and was good, and I got praised for it. But I felt like shit within me. I felt like I wasn't good enough. And it wasn't until I left my parents that I realized that. And now that I've understood that without being one within myself, I can be one with the world. Without me learning to find communion and find synchronicity within myself, there's no way I could synchronize with the world. That's why it wasn't so clear to me that I'm connected to everything else. And in the next video, I will be explaining to you how I started questioning who I was to figure out the different aspect of me. The one that was soul-based and wanted to live free, authentic, and fulfilled, and the one that I was taught to be. So definitely stay tuned for that. And if this video was totally helpful to you, make sure you share with a family member or a friend. Share with anyone that you feel that this could be beneficial for. And of course, stay tuned for more videos that are coming up. This is John Penny with Soul Tribe, and I appreciate you for watching. And my goal with this channel is to provide you with knowledge, because knowledge is power, power to free yourself. But the question is, do you want to? Boom.